for sure. Hello, Democratic Club members. My name is David Kim. I am an immigration attorney, juvenile dependency attorney here in Los Angeles in CA 34. CA 34, California's 34th Congressional District, covers central LA, including downtown LA, Boyle Heights, Eagle Rock, El Sereno, East LA, Highland Park, LaSalle Park, Lincoln Heights, Montecito Heights, down to Elysian Valley, Echo Park, parts of it, Chinatown, Westlake, Koreatown, and then also parts of Pico West and surrounding areas. And I ran last cycle as the people-powered progressive candidate. We won 47% of the total votes. We won nearly 100,000 votes, just losing by a couple of percentage points. And we're running again. Things haven't gotten better. Things have only gotten worse. Just as how Representative Cori Bush, Representative Ro Khanna won on their second time as candidates. They won on their second time and we're really in it to win it. Rewinding a little back, the reason why I initially first ran for Congress was times were tough. And I mean, they still are really tough. After moving to Los Angeles, and my parents immigrated through Los Angeles when they immigrated to the States, my whole family did. And we come back here every year. And then I finally moved here in 2010. I found myself working the 2 to 4 job hustle, daily grind. I remember working for free as an attorney just to have something on my resume, and then driving for Lyft and Uber from 7, 8 p.m. to 3, 4 a.m. in the morning, sleeping for 3 hours and then going back to work because I didn't want a hole on my resume. And I still had hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt to pay. So I needed to do something. And so it wasn't until later that with Senator Bernie Sanders running in 2016, and then later as well, that's where I was let out of my birdcage. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it really doesn't make sense. Like we work and we work and we work and we work and we work, and there's still nothing to show for it. And we wonder why. We wonder if there's something wrong with us, if we're not working hard enough, if we're not being inspired enough. But there was a point where I realized, no, the system isn't set up for us. The system is set up against us. It's not about us. I mean, we're kind of brainwashed or led that way to think that, but it's not really about us. It's about the system. The system isn't working. And when you look at a district like CA 34, where you have more or less over 40,000 people experiencing houselessness, and that number just keeps on growing, when are we actually going to look at these numbers as real human beings who have souls that are not less than either of any of us? And what are we doing about that? And why do we have speaking points and no real action? And so for me, after volunteering for different campaigns, and that's where I joined neighborhood council and became more active, it was just realizing this system of re-electing the same career politicians clearly is not working, but why do we do that? And so that's where I became more interested in electoral politics. That's one of the ways. There are many ways, but that's one of the ways. And so I had actually helped out Kenneth Mejia run for US Congress in CA 34 a few years ago, and he had decided not to run again. And I said, you know what, like you came really close. Like if you're not gonna run, hey, I'm gonna run. And so that's how we did it. We started with just that, and we started with 2 volunteers. We ended up with nearly 100,000 votes coming out of that election with 250 plus volunteers. And so why are we running again? So that's the next question. So when we lost November 3rd, I thought, okay, the people have spoken. I'm also going to accept that. I'm not going to be one of those people, not to point at any fingers, but not be one of those people or blow up my ego and say, I'm going to try this again. And I thought, no, the people have spoken, we're done. But my experience as an immigration attorney, as a juvenile dependency attorney after November 3rd, 2020, up until now, has been something where it's just even more heartbreaking, where you're representing parents in children's court. You're representing them as their dependency attorney, and they're being charged in children's court with a petition from a social worker saying that they should have their children taken away from them and put into foster care and never reunited with them at all because of substance issues, mental issues, not having no housing, having no health care, when it really actually comes down to if these parents were provided resources, would they be in the position that they're here right now? No, they would not be. Instead of spending money on enforcing DCFS or other children family services across the country in every single county, instead of funding that, why don't you fund resources to the families, to the parents? Then they wouldn't have to be in court. Then they wouldn't have to have their family split up. And so just to see that every day, working with these parents day in and day out, I just thought, you know what, like times are getting really bad, but we have these politicians doing the same old speaking points, doing the same old performative politics. When are we gonna have leaders really saying, hey, I'm not taking any more corporate PAC or special interest money because I know that what that's doing and there's something wrong. It doesn't make sense that this district continues being one of the poorest. And so that's why we're running again. How do we win? We clearly know what precincts we did well in, where we had the advantage and majority, and we know what precincts we did 50-50 in, and where the incumbent had the upper advantage. And so it's just really being more intentional with those different areas and also the different ethnic communities as well. And so that's what we're doing. But obviously as a people power campaign, we're not going to beat him in money, to be honest. And so it would be winning through people power, through word of mouth, through volunteering. If you have extra time, please check out our website, read about what our campaign's fighting for. We're really fighting to put the community first, building a floor for everyone to stand on. There's no reason anybody should be worrying about what to eat, where to sleep, how to pay for things, how to pay for basic expenses, not having resources. That's not something that our government should be putting us at all, if the government's of, for, and by the people. And so it's really coming to this realization of it doesn't make sense that our people should not be waking up in deep-rooted anxiety every day worrying about how to make ends meet. So please check us out. Also, Democratic conventions coming up for some of you who are delegates. Jimmy was the only LA Congress member whose auto endorsement was successfully blocked. And so there will be a pre-endorsing conference from that. Based on different outcomes of how that all works, there might be an occasion where you as a delegate, even though you don't live in our district, we might need your help and support if it goes all the way to convention, because that's the portion where we can get 300 delegate support from anywhere. So that's one way. So just FYI on that. But yes, please check out our website. Endorsements wise, to close out, we just launched in December because I really was not going to run again. But seeing that there was no other progressive challenger, we said, hey, let's do it. Last shot, let's do this. We were recently endorsed by Marianne Williamson last month. And then also Ground Game LA endorsed today. Also, your mayor, Culver City Mayor Daniel Lee, endorsed us as well. In addition to Youth Climate Strike and many other individuals and organizers, and we'll roll out those announcements soon. But yes, please feel free to reach out as well. My email is david@davidkimforca.com, david@davidkimforca.com. We just really want to pass single payer, pass homes guarantee. There's no reason that anything like AB 1400 not being discussed should have been like that. And so we want to make sure that's the case on the federal level too. So we need to stop corporate PAC and special interest money as well. So that's also another priority with democracy vouchers, ranked choice voting, etc. So yeah, I'm open to questions.
Great. So we have a few minutes for questions. So if anybody has a question for David, please raise your Zoom hand. Okay, Mayor Lee.
Hi, David. I'm going to ask you a question that I sometimes get in my recent races. So your opponent signs on to a lot of things that progressive voters like, what's the difference between you and your opponent? Because it seems like they do sign up for, a lot of the things that progressive groups like, I would say, the Culver City Democratic Club support. Like, is there something different that you would do or say?
Yes, most certainly. And thank you, Mayor Lee, for those questions and that and your endorsement as well. But in regards to that, I think what's very important to understand, I think as a voter who might not have as much time, and which totally makes sense given that the norm is to have 2 to 3 jobs, might not understand kind of what the differences are. But if you take a closer look, we have an incumbent who mostly plays performative politics, who's the type of person that signs on when a majority of the progressive caucus finally signs on to a bill. And that's not the type of leadership we want in Los Angeles. We want the type of leadership that's always leading on issues. And in a race where you almost nearly lost, you would expect your incumbent to really put housing as a top priority issue among everything else, especially in Los Angeles. We're the epicenter of everything right now. But just to be completely silent without really pushing forward with any comprehensive plan. I actually had to tell him what HR 6515 for last cycle was when I sat with him in February, March last year after we had lost. And I said, hey, Jimmy, you really need to learn about homes guarantee and all the different provisions, about building 20 million social housing units, about repealing the Fair Cloth Amendment, about all these different things with the Tenants Bill of Rights. You need to do all of this. He hasn't done anything. There are 11 major comprehensive housing bills, including a green public housing one, a green New Deal social housing one. He hasn't co-sponsored any of that. He doesn't care. And so, yes, he might be on signing on the ones that the progressive caucus as a majority has passed, but he's not the type to ever stand up when people really need it. And so what we need here is housing. We need a homes guarantee. What we need here is people are experiencing financial distress. We need a universal basic income for everyone right now to directly lift them out. He's for means tested relief. He was against rent cancellation. He was against cash relief during the pandemic last year, but now he's fighting for a child tax credit that happened one or twice, a couple times, and is no longer anymore. And that was also something that you get later on. And so he really doesn't understand, like, you really need to be legislating because of what you feel and know that the people are going through and suffering, not because this or that might be considered progressive. Because if you're legislating based on that as your standard, you're not legislating for the people at all. It's, again, it just becomes performative politics. And so that would be the difference between us and him. And that's something that we hope our campaign can communicate more articulately and briefly and tersely.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to move on to our next guest, but thank you so much for coming to visit us.
Thank you so much, everyone.
And I want